Welcome back. Of course, it's the Daybreak Africa if you're just joining us. I am Micheal Obagiri. So there we'll be talking about national development, addressing some key sectors and their challenges. Also, we'll be looking at the 2024 budget, which has just been passed, to see how they can be able to work for the development of Nigeria. And to do justice to that is a public affairs analyst in the studio with us, the person of Akinsile Akinniran. A very good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and happy new year to
I say same to all of us.
Again.
Thank God we all survived.
I think his regalia is really speaking positivity as usual.
Of course,
I am happy that I survived it anyway.
Of course, we are all happy.
We are all happy. Anyways, delving into the discourse of the day, we're just starting the year, and I think it is a very interesting topic to talk about national development in Nigeria, because I think that's what we need right now in order to kickstart our year positively. So, knowing the background of all that has been happening ever since 2023, since the new government emerged, what do you have to say so far, considering the state we are like right now?
Thank you very much. I want to say Happy New Year to all our viewers at home. And at the same time, I am happy that our president even know that it's not yet Uru, that things are not where it's supposed to be. And he said he's going to work assiduously to ensure we get to the destination.
Sure.
How he's going to make it work, where, when, and how, we just pray he gets it right. But so far so good. We are far from where we are going to. Very far. That's all I can say for now.
All right. Still talking about the national building and everything. Now, the proposed bill, it used to be proposed bill, but now it has been passed.
Yes.
Now, it's a questions that comes to us like, we want to know, looking at the budget, looking at every factor, every other sector that needs to be fixed. Are we on the right path with the budget? You said something some times back when you were here. You said on paper, it looks beautiful. But now, implementation has always been a problem. But just looking into the 2024 budget, rather, if you look into it, there are a lot of factors that most people are really criticizing that they have not really brought out to say, okay, these are things that we need to work on. You, on your own note, looking into the budget, where do you think is lacking? And generally, do you think we are on the right path?
Well, thank you very much. I keep saying it and I will still repeat it. Our last budget is far from what Nigerians expected. Though it has been signed into law, and any moment from now, we want to see the implementation. And Nigerians will be happy seeing it coming one after the other. Based on our past experience in Nigeria, we have never met up to 70% of any yearly budget. Is this year going to be different? Is this, we want to know the percentage results we are likely to get at the end of the year. That is why we want to challenge the government now, so that they also it caught them unaware, or maybe they never knew. There was no year Nigeria ever met up with 70% of their yearly budget. Let us see what this particular government will do. Perhaps they are going to surpass, or probably still go for appropriation bill to get some other things done after they must have exhausted the one they had. So, but to me, I looked at it from the health sector, I looked at the educational sector, I looked at the security in particular, because it takes the highest of our budget. And don't be surprised. Immediately they heard about what we budgeted for the security, you see, we all saw what is happening in Plateau State now. And some other states are warming up. Like we have in the eastern part of Nigeria, that this stay at home, and other things are stay there. And I'm too sure this money set aside for security will be used to at least factor those areas. But the question is this, not the money matters, but what are the strategic things we put in place to ensure we arrest all this unwanted attitude or antisocial behaviors in our society. And from now, look, if we say we want to attack or want to reduce insecurity in Nigeria, and the practices have just started even before the beginning of the new year, shows that we need to be proactive. If our government can be proactive, don't allow it to happen before you begin to act. Prevent it. Like Gumi said, that you shouldn't. Our president should not waste his money to buy ammunitions. Rather, you a kind of a kind of discussion with the bandits. I don't know where it happened in the world. And Nigerians are looking, the government are looking at Gumi, saying all this. To me, is a first suspect. If I am to act as a security man, I will make him a first suspect. Probably there is something he wants from it. I'm sorry to say this. And that's how a government should think. You don't encourage what is not good in any society. And let me put that one aside. Let me go to education. In education, what they set aside for education was so infinitesimal to what is expected. If we have to go by UNICEF recommendation, it is expected of us to have about 25% of our yearly budget on education. If I ask you now, you know the percentage we set aside for education. Very, very meager to the recommendation. And don't forget that there's no nation can rise beyond its education. Your education as a nation will determine how far you go. And I know of some countries that their level of literacy is about 99%. As of today in Nigeria, we are less than 70% our level of literacy. So this is what we need to work on. Let's us start from our primary school to secondary school to higher institutions. We are getting something wrong now in our educational sector by policy. Let me just use that as a case study. Today we are operating 9-3-4, 9-year compulsory for first 9 year compulsory education, another 3 years to SS3, and perhaps to institution. That's not my problem. But my problem is that first 9 year, there's no way any child can repeat a class. Whether you pass or you fail, you must go on. You must move forward. Of what relevance is that? If a child is not doing well, perhaps maybe the capability or the capacity cannot sustain what his colleagues are doing. Children don't learn the same manner or same way. We must understand and get that fact. If we allow it, I have seen a younger brother of mine that was a bit wicked, and after 2 years of staying in a class, you know, he's the best in everything he does today. Why? Because we give him to rise at his own peak. But once you are trying to drag such child along with others, certainly he will never comprehend, and it will be a kind of disadvantage to himself, to the society, even to his own family. So if this policy can be looked into, it will be of great advantage to us. Let us talk of our curriculum. Our curriculum from primary to institution supposed to be reviewed. I stand to be corrected. Someone told me that the curriculum they are using for computer science students in the university in the last 30 years is still the same thing they are using today. How do you expect your child to improve if we are still working with archaic curriculum? So our curriculum must be reviewed at all levels, from primary school to the higher institutions. And these things require finance. And that is where we are not leaving the stage we are, because we don't take cognizance of our education. Today you will see some, what do you call it? Let me give you another example in primary school of today. Precisely in the nursery, or let me say private schools today, in the nursery session. They always write about 17 subjects. In primary school, primary nursery 1, 2, 3, primary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 17 subjects. By the time they go to university, they must be writing like 50 or 100 courses. That's by implication. And that's why government came up to say, okay, we are coming up with a policy. No primary school student should write more than 9 subjects. They thank God, but that is on paper. What about the implementation? Go to any primary school, any public school today, any private school today, you still see these children writing 17 subjects. Whereas they're supposed to limit them to 9. So when we are talking about policy, curriculum, we need to work on our managers. We have educational managers that are working on the management of education. Let them be proactive. Let them do their job the way it's supposed to be done. Checkmate these people. There's no, sometimes I look at some parents. We have, sorry for digressing, we have 3 level of holidays. The long vacation was for adventures for pupils or students. Guess what? Some parents will still go and engage these children in extra lessons. whereas it is meant for adventures. Those that plan the curriculum has a reason for planning it, but because we want everything to be academic, at the end of the day, what has it given to us as a nation? What have we gotten from it? Because many of us cannot even identify any skill to ourselves. But if a child has gone on adventure or learn a new thing, perhaps you take your child to the computer center or to where they are weaving mats or doing one thing or the other, such thing he must have learned at that period will be additional experience to whatever he must have had. But today the reverse is the case, and our government just looked, they are just looking at us as if all is well. Put that one aside. Let's go to our health sector. Today they assigned a certain amount for our health, for our health sector, and can what they put there commensurate with the needs of the society today? And it's time to be corrected. The level of illness in Nigeria today is like 40% higher. Take for example, we have 30% before of our ailments in Nigeria. In the last 4 months, 40% would have been added. Add 40 plus 30, that's about 70%. The budgeted amount for health sector today, can it commensurate or can it handle the prevailing or the newly identified ailments in our society?
Exactly. That's where I want to come in with the next question. Now, looking at the budgets that has been passed into law, about 86% of them are to be consumed by about 10 sectors in Nigeria.
Good.
I will name those 10 sectors. We have the Federal Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, Ministry of Police Affairs, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, and last but not the least is the Ministry of Niger Delta. Now, looking at this, I'm very sure that one of the reasons why we bring budget on a yearly is to advance and also not to make the same mistake that we made on the last budget, to be able to improve and do things better. Now, Ministry of Niger Delta, there are certain amount that has been allocated to that place for infrastructural and physical security. I understand that place because it's generating a lot for the country, talking about the oil. But why are we doing this alone for the oil sector? What happened to other sectors, the agriculture, the small and medium scale enterprises? Why are we not giving them that same energy, that same support? Because if the budget is bringing this alone for them, what happens to other sector?
Thank you very much. That is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of implementation. One, before implementing, our planning most times is always erroneous. It's always all wrong. As a nation, you must identify your weakening points. You must know where you are not improving. Do something about it. When you mentioned food security, I just laughed. Is Nigeria secure in terms of food? That's the question. An average Nigerian should ask ourselves. Going back to the Niger Delta you mentioned, now I won't deny it. Giving a certain portion of what Nigeria got from this oil sector to the people that are suffering from it is no problem. But the question is those other sectors that needed attention, why did we fail to give it to them? Today, there's one thing that increases our GDP in Nigeria. That's our small and medium scale industry. What effort are we putting in place to support them so that they can move on and have a effective production in our society? No nation can rise beyond its production. The question we need to ask ourselves in Nigeria is, what are we producing? Is it for ourselves? Is it to export? Or what are we really producing in Nigeria? We only import things, and even the importation, there are some things you cannot import into Nigeria. So there I was expecting this government to sit down and do a proper planning, which we are afraid anyway. From the planning, we know what each sector needs and what really important. For instance, this Nigeria of a thing, if you are giving them 1 million per month, it's not a big deal because they can make enemies with it. But the question is this: all the sectors that needed our support as a nation for us to grow together, what are we doing for them? How are we supporting them? I was laughing during the last administration of Obagiri when they were giving 10,000 for us trade that money. What will a trader do with 10,000 naira? Where millions are needed. It's not like giving money just to go and, because today you want to buy a pepper soup and a bottle of beer, 5,000 would have gone. So that means that money has no value. Now to now commercialize that with the present problem we have in Nigeria, that I will discuss when it is time. Today, why we're having these problems, apart from lack of proper planning and implementation, I took time to study the economy of Nigeria today in the last 6 months when our Baba Tinubu came on board. There is one thing that is peculiar to this government administration, and what is it? Inflation. Not only inflation is the highest of all inflation, I call it hyperinflation. How do you measure hyperinflation? Hyperinflation can only be measured when we have about over 50% increment in the goods and services in the society. And this regime brought in hyperinflation. Immediately you announced removal of subsidy, everything went up with about 80%. And no nation, underline, no nation ever encourage hyperinflation. You can encourage inflation, maybe 2%, 1% every year or monthly. But no nation will ever encourage an inflation that will take about 50% of the goods and services of a nation. And that's where we are today. And I took time to go and read and know every nation that is affected by this hyperinflation must have been as a result of war. Do we have any war in Nigeria? Then why did we have it? USA had it last. Then why? Because they had wars. And probably when they changed currency. These are the two factors. But we changed currency in Nigeria. Why did we change it? That's the first question. Do we have reason to change the currency? And today we are still spending the same currency today. So, and I don't know why the issue of hyperinflation should come on board. That's number one. Then number two, now we have hyperinflation in Nigeria. What is the way out? What is the present government doing to checkmate, to reduce, to eradicate, if not to stop this hyperinflation that is causing increment in the price of every good and service in Nigeria? What are they doing? This is a new year. It is not too late to plan. Our only way forward is to plan. And when you plan, what follows plan is implementation. God will help us.
Anyways, from recent news, we could hear from the government that they are planning towards reopening the Port Harcourt refinery, and also we know that Dangote refinery is also on board. However, that's a privatized one. But yet again, people are hoping that that could actually have a positive effect on our economy. And that aside, I was listening to an interview recently where someone was agitating for the government to try to cut down the cost of leadership, or cost of governance rather. So looking at these two factors, which majorly speak on trying to reduce inflation and trying to probably put balance on the economy, is it a positive move if the government could actually adopt to any of them?
Thank you very much. These are a very interesting topic I always love to discuss. You see, I watched a clip this morning when the Prime Minister of United Kingdom went to maybe a shop. He did the shopping himself. He went to about 5 different shops, complex, to make purchase of things, and he bought. He used his card to pay, and people were celebrating him. You know one funny thing? Not even one soldier, not talk of a police behind him. He was walking freely. We know that may not be possible in Nigeria due to the situation we are. But another funny scenario is that when our president was going to Lagos for his own vacation, but if I stand to be corrected, I know there were over 300, if not 400 soldiers and about 400 police officers going around and imagine about, when I was counting, I think I lost count when I got the 30th SUV following our president in the process of vacation in Lagos alone. Look at cost of governance. If an SUV, the least we can get is around 160 million. And when someone is going with about 30 or 40, 50 SUVs as president, is that not outrageous? This is a question for that is begging for answer. Now let's go back to the issue of refinery you mentioned. Fine, Dangote has received the second 1 million, first 1 million, second 1 million of barrel of crude oil. Yeah, in Lagos, fine. Who these people say, who you help? If you get your 2 million or 10 million barrels of crude oil, what is the effect to the society? Don't forget that when President Tinubu came on board, he said he removed subsidy so that we can have fuel in surplus at our disposal anytime, any day. I want to inform you that today there are still queue everywhere, and we have even gone beyond the budget, the stated benchmark to sell fuel in Nigeria. Today, an average price you can see is around 630, 640, when the benchmark was 590. So why do we have the excess of 40 naira per liter? That's first question. Number two, why do we still have shortage of fuel? When you said once you remove the subsidy, there will be availability of fuel. That won't be scarcity again. Why do we still have the scarcity? That's number two. Number three, all the money we are saving from this subsidy, of what value is it to Nigerians? If we can still be borrowing in trillions, when this money that we claimed on the line that we are getting from subsidy, put all these things together, you know that this government is yet to be serious, or let me say is yet to find their feet in governance. And like she said, I am not happy with the state of the way we spend money to let me say the money we are spending for governance is too outrageous. It's not acceptable. It's rejected by Nigerians. And I'm happy when he was going with his entourage in Lagos. I heard the women in the market. They were shouting one thing: "We are hungry. We are hungry." You could hear himself. Nigerians are hungry, and I pray we not die of hunger.
Amen.
That's all I can say for now.
Okay. From the news that we got about the government has promised to provide about 350,000 hectares of land for cultivation in response to trying to provide, let's say, security for food in the nation. Also, the proposed budget has received a let me say a token of, should I even call it a token, something of 1.2 trillion naira, an increase because maybe they felt like there are things that they need to
put in place.
Yeah. Now, talking about nation building, we have tried to build nations, and we have a lot of money going to budget, which is supposed to be for nation building, national building. But for the past 16 years, apart from all the things that you've stated, implementation, strategies, planning, and everything, is it that we don't have men that has come on board to build Nigeria? Politically, what is really happening in the political sphere that is stopping Nigeria from developing?
I want to be political in that respect.
Okay.
Now, why I want to be political is that not everything you say on here. Why we fail to develop as a nation, only one reason: corruption. That's all. If we can be sincere, if we can handle Nigeria as our own business, that we don't want this business to fail, let us see Nigeria as our personal business, because nobody will wish that his personal business should fail. So if our actors in governance today can try and make Nigeria corruption free, and very easy, because I remembered President Tinubu said it when he was still contesting or campaigning, that he met corruption in Nigeria. If that old man can meet corruption in Nigeria, you will know that corruption is as old as Nigeria itself. But what are you now doing to reduce, if not to stop corruption?
So are we to believe that corruption cannot be entirely
be
stopped?
That is where the problem is. But I can tell you it can be stopped. We have had it in the past. During the period of President Olusegun Obasanjo, he knew that there was corruption. He knew that he cannot stop corruption, but he was able to reduce corruption. And I will tell you 3 things he did to reduce corruption. He first of all initiated ICPC. Later he came up with EFCC, and the final one is procurement policy. it is that procurement policy was my interest. That is to say, if you want to buy anything as a contractor for Nigeria, there must be market value and there must be contract value. Take for instance, if you want to buy is being sold for 10 naira in the market. If you say it's 12 naira as a contract value, it is acceptable. Once it is beyond 12%, that's 20% increment, it is not allowed. So it was able to control the price of commodities. So there is no way until you go through that price control. There's no way take for instance, maybe they're selling what do you call it, generating plant for 10,000 naira. As a contractor, you want to supply like 100 for some certain prestataries or ministries. You say, okay, bring 1,000. Okay, the market value is 10,000. There's no way you can go and give it to Obasanjo once it's more than 12,000 naira. That is to say, the only cost of if anything cost, the tax, everything you want to make must not be more than 20%. And because whatever you want to go and try to buy, you must have the price. So, but today you can do anything in Nigeria at will. And this is why we need to if we cannot go back to that days, let us improve on them. Our ICPC improve on it, EFCC improve on it, and this procurement there's policy. I gave it a name. If I remember, I would say it now. That was the name I gave to them. So once you have the procurement policy that we regulate price of commodities, price of everything we want to do in Nigeria, everything will be okay for us. And when we are talking about, I want to go to another one. We mentioned the food security. I've been to Qatar. Every food they eat in Qatar is being subsidized because they know they cannot afford it. They cannot access everything. So most of their things, it was being imported. As you are bringing them in, there is a kind of certain percentage that will be given to you as duty free, that you are bringing this into their country. So there, if you go to Safari, you go to any of the these markets, you will only see slight difference in the price because government is controlling the price of commodities in the country. Likewise in US, in all developed countries. But today you can buy a Congo of Gari here 700 naira, the next place 600 naira, another place 1,000. No regulation. So until we have regulatory body that controls and it must not be done only on paper. Go to the the radio stations, tell the market women, tell the security officers that if you see anybody selling beyond this price, make arrest. So when there is these policies and plans and the ways of arresting these decisions, I can assure you, within time, Nigeria, and I love Nigeria for one thing, we always regulate ourselves to condition we find ourselves. This is within time, except few, and those few can be handled in appropriate way. Once we jail one and there's another one sentenced, the third person will learn his lesson. That's the best way to learn in Nigeria. So until all these things are put in place, I am afraid if we will not remain the way we are in the year 2017, 2018, during the era of
going to
our
another
PNB.
aspect, which is the aspect of insecurity and investment in Nigeria. Now, you will agree with me that 2023 has been quite a lostful year to an extent, where we lost.
Oh no, you didn't say that. Say it louder. Lostful. Right, I love that language.
Well, we lost some investors from our country, and also some lives were lost, especially towards the end of the year. That's at Plateau State. Now, the issue of insecurity has been one we have been speaking and, well, I say we've been shouting about it, that government should do something about it. But yet again, we see government going out instead to look for investors who will come invest in the country, thereby not looking into the issue of insecurity and its spike. So what do you think is our fate at this point?
Thank you very much. It's like wasting our time if we are saying we are looking for investors when we are not secured. It's mere wasting of time. Nobody will ever want to invest where his properties, lives cannot be secured. So the first thing I think we should do is to regulate and make sure Nigerians are more of a secured country. Once that one is done, other things we can follow. And let me just tell you one funny thing that people will not believe. I have seen this insecurity in Nigeria today like a betting. Some people controls it. This security we are talking about, some people are in charge. And until we get them to book, it's like wasting our time. They don't, insecurity don't come anyhow. Something must lead to something. And let me just tell you one funny thing. In the whole world, no country is secured. But the level of security is only like 0.01, maybe 1% of insecurity. And that is to say, it can be managed. But in the case of Nigeria, nothing can be managed. Because as we are fighting in the plateau, you see the our friends from the riverine doing their own. You will see another herdsmen doing their own, all at a time.
So is it that we are unable to get a hold of this insecurity? Is it that our force is unable or incapacitated?
Not incapacitation. I used to refer to the era of President Olusegun Obasanjo. There are so many things he put in place. We call it system. Once the system is in place, the system will take charge, because no system will ever wish to fail. And once you know that your system is at fault, you want to do everything money possible to ensure you arrest and do the needful. So we have the intelligent officers in every local government, not in every state, where they give information about happenings in our society. But today we don't have that. Let us go back to that era whereby people can give us information of what is happening. God will help us in Nigeria.
Amen. Well, I know we've been warned already, but just in a minute, what would you have to say to the government and also to the Nigerian people, knowing the fact that we're just starting a new year and people are beginning to be hopeful that the government is going to do one or two positive things to put things in place? And just with the president's speech, New Year's speech, telling the people that he understands their position at the time and he is with the people. So what do you have to say about that in general?
Very simple. I would talk to Nigerians. Let us calm down. The era of praying is over. We have been praying, and I know God has answered our prayer. This time around, let us be active. Do something. Whatever you do will give you results. Even if government is not doing their own part, do your own part. Within time, you get results of whatever you are doing. And on that note, I want to say, let us begin to work. Forget about government. When government sees you working, they will also want to go with you. Only if God give them the heart of being. I don't know what to say. God help us.
I think at this stage, he has involved God in the whole thing.
I'm telling you, that's the only thing we need.
Anyway, thank you for joining us on this episode of
It's my pleasure.
It's a pleasure always having you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Happy New Year once again.
I wish you the same too.
And also Happy New Year to our audience as well, once again, because we're still in the period of New Year. However, this will be drawing the curtain on this episode of Daybreak Africa. Till we come your way again, I'm Angela Daku.
And as always, I will still remain blessed and productive. I remain Micheal Obagiri.